What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today we are doing a special interview kind of video with the Ironman expert Ahzure, and we're going to be talking about what happens behind the scenes, different ways of playing Black Desert, and just learning about what happens when you try doing different things. So brought on Ahzure, another BDO creator, and you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up? My name is Matthew, other known as Azure in the BDO space. As Jonlaw mentioned, I do play this game in a little bit of a unique way, more known as an Ironman. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with what an Ironman is, the term comes from a game of old school RuneScape. We brought it over to BDO. There was content creators prior to me that got me involved into this, known as Sicklu and Quinny M8. They basically brought this idea to me, and the Iron Man is essentially you're playing the game of Black Desert, like a lot of us may be familiar with, but with a lot of self-imposed rules and restrictions. Some of those, for example, the most staple items are you cannot use the central market, you cannot buy, trade, or sell anything with other players, and most importantly as well, you cannot spend any money on the account, so no Pearl Shop. It's a really fun time. I've also added some stricter, harsher rules on my account as well, like no Jatina, no Fugar, no seasonal progression, no Olvia Academy, which was recently added to the game a little while back. It's just a lot of things that you add to the account to give it more layer and depth of challenges, and it's honestly really fun to play.
Yeah, for sure. How long have you been doing this series for? Because I've been watching what you have 40 episodes, maybe more behind the scenes now.
Yeah, I'm currently 44 episodes in. I am on the works of 45, which should hopefully be dropping here in the next couple of days. But I
Awesome.
started this account in February of 2024. So we are a little over 2 years into this account, which I feel as though it sounds like a long time, which it definitely is. But honestly, every single step along the journey has been such a fun time, and I've been enjoying it ever since day one.
Yeah, so what made you start doing this over your main account? You probably started doing something and you're like, I want to try an Iron Man series or something. How did
Yeah,
that go
so
about?
what really got me into wanting to do the Iron Man series, like I mentioned, former creators of like Sicklu and Quinny M8. Sicklu at the time was already doing what was an Iron Man series, and this was before CARES at accessories. This was before Sovereign Weapons. This was before Adana gear. Those weren't in the game yet. And at the time, like end game gear was pen debos or, trying to go for Tet Fallen God armor, which at the time was very, very rare. Like it was very uncommon to have that. And I had approached the 700 gear score mark on my main account around 3 years ago in late 2023. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Do I just push for pen debos? And I was watching one of Quinny M8's videos and then also learned about Sicklu, and they were like hitting me up in DMs and we were just chatting. I'm like asking them how things are going, like what got them into this. And the more and more that I just spoke to them about it, the more that they encouraged me to now try an Iron Man series. So I feel like their persuasion, along with my interest of just replaying the early parts of the game, like Medaya, for example, for those like those veteran players that used to grind Sawsons, Helms, Elric Shrine, maybe even over in Calpheon with Catfish. For those of you who used to hit level 50 over at Catfish, I don't know. I think that there was just a lot of nostalgia there for me that I was really interested in, and playing the game in like a different way, like I mentioned, with a lot more challenges and layers of difficulty was just so intriguing to me at the time. And I'm far into the account now.
Do you think BDO will ever do like a classic? You know how World of Warcraft did that? Would you play it if Black Desert did?
I 100% would play this, and I know that this has been, I don't want to say controversial, but I feel like that this has been a strong subject within at least the past year and a half, maybe. Um, I need to pull this up for reference. I'm not sure if maybe you want to include it on the screen in your video,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
the Black Desert, I don't know if they posted it on their Twitter or like other platforms, but on their Instagram account at the day of this recording, 2 days ago, they made a post saying, "Can you remember how it felt?" and it's them just showing a bunch of different little moments and clips from like 2017, 2018, 2019, like even back when renowned score gear or whatever it was called back then was a thing. And if you read the comments, there's a few people that are like, OMG Grunnel, OMG BDO Classic server.
I
Not
remember
that
all
they're
this.
Yeah, not that this is them hinting at it, but there's been a few posts that they've made recently on their social media that have been pointed at like old BDO. Like they've showcased it. I mean, even you, for example, they even have a video that I think you posted
Yeah,
from like
I
10
remember
years ago.
they reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we're using one of your clips." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah, but they're starting to resurface a lot of older content from BDO, and I don't know if that's just them trying to like nostalgia bait people or players, or if they're trying to drop little hints. I'm not sure.
I hope
But
if
to
they
answer
do
your
it though, they do it right because you know, I feel like, the hardcore server, if you played that a couple years ago, kind of wasn't as expected.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I just hope they take the time to do it properly if they're doing a reset or a classic.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I would 100% play it. I don't know the longevity of it. I don't know if it
Hmm.
would be similar to what they did with World of Warcraft, where they drop like the base game and then later on they start adding those expansions. I think is what they call them in World of Warcraft.
Right.
I don't know if they would do something like that, where because when I started playing the game was right around the time that Kama Sylvia released. So I don't have as much knowledge prior to that, but I'm curious if they did a classic server, if they would do something similar to World of Warcraft, where they would eventually over time just start adding the things like it was way back in the day, or if they would just have one server, how you explained like the hardcore server, and it's just like you swap over to it and it's kind of like a game mode. Like I don't know if they would do it that way, or not sure about their approach.
I would hope it just goes back into like, a different client entirely, to just reset everything from the 2016 era and then just add expansions, kind of like how WoW did it. I think that would be a cool idea.
Yeah, I think that or however they would want to do it, if there's a way to play Black Desert how it was in like 2016, 2017, or however, but with everyone still on it with the knowledge that we all have now, I think it'd be such a fun time. I think it would be a tremendous time.
I do think that BDO is one of those different games, whereas like the progression is actually very time consuming and difficult compared to other games where you can get to end game in what, a couple hundred hours. This game was multiplied by a lot and a lot more RNG and stuff. So I feel like BDO would have to have some quality of life stuff included, from current day to back then, but like the same gameplay
Yeah.
loop.
Like I think the biggest one, I don't remember if you remember this. I'm sure you do. Remember Silver having weight?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Like imagine if they dropped a classic server and they retained all the factors or whatever you want to call it from back then. Like imagine if you played it and they still had it to where Silver had weight. Like I think a lot of players would ask for like how you mentioned current quality of life but in a classic server.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So, like, what has been your experience with managing your main account versus your Iron Man account these days? Like, how much time do you dedicate into each of them?
Honestly, whenever I started the Iron Man account, I want to say I really did put my main account on the back burner. I kind of just put it in the box and shoved it under my bed for a while. I
Hmm.
would log onto it periodically just for whatever reason if I felt like I wanted to grind some of the end game content. I think what really motivated me to continue playing on my main account and, dust off the box and reopen it, whenever Sovereign Weapons and Adonia came out, I think that those were the two big things that were added into the game. And at the time, I'm like, wow, I don't have the gear to like really explore this new content. So because there was a lot of content for me to explore, that really made me motivated to get back on my main account. Like right now, I'm not that this is anything to play about or whatever, or not play about. This is anything to brag about, but I mean, my main account is a little over 800 gear score right now. I've actively been trying to get better at PvP, The new AOS season just dropped. I think it's been a lot of fun so far.
Hmm.
But trying to find the time in between the main account and the Ironman account, I have done my best to only play on the Ironman account whenever I'm streaming, which I know isn't
Oh, that's
five
a good
days a week.
concept.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that go into the Ironman account where, for example, like in my Y tab, like I haven't claimed the free Garmoth heart, like the free Pen Black Star that they gave us like 2 years ago at the Heidel Ball or however many years ago it was, like the free Tet Black Star, the T10 horse and all that. I don't claim any of that stuff, and I feel like I can just avoid any questions or concerns by streaming the account because then
Hmm.
no one can point the finger and go, "Oh, well, I think he did this off screen."
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, you can go literally watch me grind 60 plus hours at a certain spot for just one item. Like, if I need to go get that item, I have to go grind it. And if it takes me tens of hours, I'm going to do it all on stream.
Yeah, I get that. So I kind of wanted to ask you a bunch of like behind the scenes questions. Maybe you've answered them on your own videos, but like, how come you're like not doing or the Olvia Academy? You would think that anything that's not like pay to win or using the central market that you could do naturally, you decide not to do that yourself.
Whenever it comes to, for example, like the Olvia Academy, even though the Olvia Academy was introduced after I created the Ironman account, all of those benefits and rewards that you receive through completing it, in my mind, are on the same path of like Fugar, Jatina, all the seasonal progression rewards, gear, whatever you want to call it. Because in my mind, I view it as like accelerated progression.
Hmm.
Because as a new player, when you get into the game, you spend like a couple of days. If you're a veteran, you can do it in one day. Let's say like the first week as a new player, you're like already looking into making your sovereign weapons. Like you already have enough pen black stars to just go ahead and make your sovereigns.
Yeah, I
Um,
noticed.
there's just a ton of new experiences for players to be able to, and features for players to just be able to catch up or get to a point in the game where they're able to start looking at that new end game content, you know?
Hmm.
And I feel like whenever I made the Iron Man account, like I mentioned earlier, the nostalgia, I would just be skipping over all of that if I were to have accepted like the free rewards from OV Academy, Jatina, Fugar, Seasonal, going into like the central market as well. I could like on my Iron Man account right now, I have over 20 billion liquid silver just on my account because like I mentioned, I can't use the central market because let's say I did, I could just go buy gear upgrade with that, which
Hmm.
if you're a normal player just playing the game regularly, that's great. Being able to just immediately buy an upgrade off the marketplace, that's amazing. But I think for me, the experience of what the Iron Man account is, where it's self-made, self-found, being able to manually grind up everything and go to each individual grind spot to obtain those rare accessories or stones or whatever you may need, that's part of the exploration that I really enjoy about the Iron Man account. It
Did you
really
make
feels
your
like
sorry to interrupt. Did you like make the rule of you can't buy anything from the NPCs themselves if they sell it?
so whenever it comes to like buying things for the NPCs, I mean if you wanted to go buy green grade gear off of an NPC like in Altanova or something, I think that's fine. I think I at the time when I made my account, the two main rules that I wanted to make sure I followed, which I believe Siklu and Quinny also did, was just it's entirely free to play and you can't use the central market no matter what. You can't use it for storage, you can't put
Hmm.
your silver in it, you can't buy or sell or do anything. And I feel like just buying from NPCs, it doesn't qualify the same as using the central market because you can't buy like super expensive items off of an NPC. Like if I want to go get a Tet Tungred ring, I can't just go buy tens of Tungred rings off an NPC.
Hmm.
I manually have to go to Sakraya or Prati Cave and go grind them. And I feel like that just falls into the exploration of being able to revisit older spots that a lot of newer players may not even know exist or have even thought about. It's the same thing with like at the start with going for Asula accessories. Like how many new players do you even think know what Asula accessories are?
It was a good concept at the time, but not
Yup.
anymore. Because I was
Yeah.
asking because they've recently, I guess, over the past like year or two, have added more NPCs that sell like alchemy and cooking materials, and
Mhm.
I assume you put that restriction on. You cannot do that, and you'd have to go farming or something yourself to do it.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of cherry picking that is involved with me in this account. I think a great example of that is for how you explain there's newer NPCs in the game that can sell items that in the past you would have to manually make them. Or for example, with like your manage currency tab, like all the seals or event whatever seals that they add into the game, there's a lot of things that I could bypass by redeeming those seals, for example, memory fragments or like magical stones or sealed black magic crystals, whatever it may be, magical shards, etc. A lot of those items that I would have to go out and grind, I could just claim through my managed currency tab, but I feel as though I do cherry pick from time to time of what I'm allowed to pick and what I'm not allowed to pick. And in my mind, if it doesn't factor into like the accelerated progression, then I think it's okay.
Hmm.
So
So, like for
that's just where
example, the
I,
enhancement tab. Let's say you know how all your stuff gets stored in there, like Blackstones. Do you
yeah.
think that would be kind of cheating because you have a weight limit? So you should put that in your main inventory, and if your inventory gets full, well, it's part of the
Yeah,
thing.
so I can't remember exactly when that update rolled out. I want to say it was around like 6 months ago or something, if I'm correct,
Hmm.
or maybe a little bit longer. I do remember when that enhancement tab was added into our inventory, I immediately just tried to just not even pay attention to it. I did take everything out of my inventory, and then I would, out of my enhancement inventory, and then just put it into my default inventory. Because, like you mentioned, the weight thing, stuff like that, because it
I
only
do wish
counts
you
as
could turn that
inventory
off by
slot.
default because, like, even in modern day gaming for like people who are just playing naturally, it's kind of annoying to move things in and out. So,
Yeah, it could be a little tedious moving things in and out. But for example, if I were to move Kaffir stones out of my enhancement tab and put them in my inventory, and then I go grind an hour, whatever Kaffirs I make within that hour don't default go into the stack I moved into my inventory. It goes
yeah,
right
that's
back into
one
my
complaint
enhancement
I'd
tab.
have too.
So whenever I moved everything out of my enhancement tab into my inventory, because in my Ironman videos, every time I do like 2 hours or 4 hours grinding, I do like to do a little recap and like reevaluate what I got in my hour. It's like, oh, cool, I got 30 Kaffirs. I could put that towards my Griffin helmet to eventually get C10 and then turn that into Libresca. But because things wouldn't just stay in a stack and they would have separate stacks, I just started losing count of things. And I'm like, wait, so I did 2 hours, but I remember pulling it out of my enhancement tab, putting it here. Now there's a new stack, and I'm like, wait, hold on. And then it just got
Yeah,
confusing. So at some
too.
point I just went, all right, whatever. I'm gonna embrace the new enhancement tab. Whatever by default falls into that enhancement tab, I'm just gonna leave in there. And that's it.
I think that's fair
So
enough.
yeah, so it's like I have 41,000 Blackstones just sitting on my character, which would take up a lot of weight if it was in my normal inventory. But I just leave it there because again, if I put it into a storage like in Velia, I will then have to just keep putting all those Blackstones back into that storage. So I've just kind of left it now. So that's where I'm at with it.
I guess more questions I've been curious about is like infinite potions. You know how we didn't have those back in the day. Are you still? Is that a rule?
So whenever it comes to the infinite potions, even though the Iron Man, I do like to experience some nostalgia, rather it be if you want to like put classic around it. I am still taking on gear that is new. Like I do have Fallen God armor. I do have a Black Star.
Oh yeah,
Those
I
things
assume
were
there's a goal, like an end game goal. So I just
yeah,
want to see
yeah.
how restrictive. Like, what is your end game goal to get 800 gear score in this account, or
It's 700 because with the way that the game is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, unless you have like Adana armor, sovereign weapons, like maybe even Karazad's or Karazad's sovereign, maybe Adana armor, like you literally just cannot even obtain 800 gear score.
hmm
Like if you were to have all Pen Black Stars, like all Pen Debo accessories, like Tet Falling God armors, I don't think you can even achieve 800 gear score. And at the time when I made this account, the goal was 700 gear score, and that's still what it is to this day. It is still 700 gear score. I know now to some players that may not seem like a high goal, but with the way that I'm gearing up without using Karazad, without using sovereign weapons, like that is still like an achievable feat. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited to be within the 50 gear score gap of achieving that. I know it's going to be a little bit harder from here because I have to go for like pen accessories and a pen black star soon. But
Do you think the game is a lot easier or harder now for your account? Not like the weapons and gear upgrades, but like how Perlibus has been balancing things. Like, they do class balance every now and then, and that's unavoidable. And or they've nerfed and buffed grind spots and just all that stuff that we can't really avoid or change throughout the game.
yeah, I think overall, since I made this account a little over 2 years ago, to answer that bluntly, I think it has become easier. Like how you mentioned, there are things that Perlibus will change or add to the game that you literally just cannot avoid it. Like if they make a grind spot that I'm grinding at 10x the silver, I can't avoid that.
Hmm.
Like I could technically just cut my trash in half and just throw the rest away, but those are things I would have to manually do out of my own realm, or if they changed classes or did something else. Like I literally just cannot avoid that. But things like accepting a free pen black star or enrolling into the OV Academy, I can avoid those things.
Hmm.
So if I'm able to avoid it, I would like to do my best to and still retain to like the original rules and goals that I made at the beginning of the account.
So at the end of your journey, are you going to do like a part two or like a season two where you're just like, okay, I made it to this point, and now I can get a few of these things to push to the next goal? You think that's going to be a plan for the future, or once you're done with the current goal, it's done?
So I've briefly spoken on this a couple of times on stream because I've received that question a lot, especially within the past 6 months to a year. With the Ironman account, I do think it will be once I complete my goal of 700 gear score on this account, I will kind of just take this account, put it on the shelf, kind of look at it from time to time, reminisce in it, and go, I did that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, there have been a few times where I've thought about de-Ironmanning the account and then just playing it normally from there. But at that point, I would essentially just be playing catch up to my main account, which at that point I don't think would be that fun. There are a ton of other ideas and concepts of like a different iteration of an Ironman that I really want to tackle without using this account and by starting over on a fresh new account. I think it would be a lot of fun to again just shelf this account, be able to look back on it, go, I did that, start over on a new account, do a whole new series with harder challenges, harder restrictions, playing the game in ways that we just haven't seen before.
Hmm.
And that's where I want to go with it after this one. So,
Yeah, I think that's good because I've seen Choice do a series of like Road to 700, now 800 gear score on multiple different accounts. And so I was wondering if you're going to do like from the same account or just make another one. But yeah, I think that's a cool idea.
yeah, I think the next challenge that I take on, I don't necessarily want it to be a gear score goal. I would like it to be something else. I really like the idea that Sickloot did on his Hardcore Ironman account series, where his endgame goal was to get a pen Debo neck with like a lot of the same rules and restrictions, like no central market, no pearl shop, stuff like that. Not that it would necessarily have to be an individual piece of gear that I would like to obtain as my end game to complete the account, but I'm still brainstorming. I'm still trial and erroring a lot of things and play testing on a different account to see what can work and what can't. Because I don't want to start a series, get months into it, and then hit a wall where I literally just cannot progress because I didn't think about it or something like that, you know?
I feel like that's Black Desert kind of in the general because there's so much RNG to the point where I'm just
Yeah.
like, actually, that was one of the questions. Like, how much does RNG factor into the series, like for progression? Because enhancing, you either get it or you don't. So, like, if you fail something, how much time would that set you back on average? A couple weeks or a couple hours?
I mean, yeah, it can vary depending on what gear item I'm trying to enhance. Depending on what it is, it really can set me back tens of hours, if not weeks, if not maybe a month, if not multiple months.
Hmm.
Like before, it was around the time when they first added the agri-sensors onto items, like the pity system. At the time, going for a Tet Black Star, it required you to have failed 25 times until you guaranteed it.
It
Which
used to
now I
be
think,
back in the day. Some people who are newer, we didn't even have a pity system. We just had to hope it goes.
yeah, yeah, it was either it went or it didn't, and then they eventually added the Agris pity system. And at the time, I can't remember what episode it was, but whenever I was trying to enhance my Black Star to Tet, I literally failed it 25 times. I hit the pity system. And one of those things, it's like, I mean, depending on if I'm crawling it, the stones, etc., the memory fragments. I mean, that's a ton of hours that I have to go and put into like Histria or Alchemy because I had to go grind the scrolls, and then I got to run the scrolls, get the memory fragments, and then I have to grind up the amount of silver to then buy cron stones, stuff like that. And I remember back then, because it took me 25 fails, it took me much longer to achieve my Tet Black Star. And then now I think it's what, 12 fails to get a
Something like
Tet?
that. Yeah.
I believe. And now going for a pen block star, it's only 15. And I'm like, I really hope I don't, fail 15 times because I think the dopamine rush of me achieving a pen black star versus achieving it through a guaranteed system would just feel much more rewarding. But yeah, I mean, depending on what it is, like my helmet most recently, my pen griffin took me like 18 fails, which, I mean, depending on if you're using crons and stuff, that's billions of silver per click.
I remember doing that back in the day, just hoping it goes. Back when cron stones were 2 mil each. Obviously, you can't use them, but yeah.
Yeah. Crawling was a completely different thing back then. So,
Do you know if there's a
like,
point, like mentally, that you're gonna hit a wall that might be too hard to complete? Because even as a normal player, like gear progression gets very tough at certain points, and if you're restricting yourself even further, do you think it might not even be completable, or like within a couple year time frame or something, to the point where you're just like, yeah, I can't do this?
I fortunately don't think I'll reach that mental hurdle just because the way that the game is prior to 700 gear score or leading up to 700 gear score, like, I mean, I've kind of mapped out how I believe my gear will look to achieve 700 gear score. And I think like the lowest percent chance it will be for an item to succeed is like 3.5%. It's like 3 to 5%, which would be the pen black star. Like pen accessories, if you're using the appropriate stack, it's like an 8 to 10%. If you're overstacking, it can be like 12 to 15. Going for like pen armors, that's been a little bit tedious, but I mean, it's still like a 5 to 7% chance. Whereas going for what, like dex sovereign weapons on the main account, it's not even a 1% chance. If not, it's like a 0.90. Fortunately, I do not have to experience those rough odds on the Ironman
Yeah.
account. So I don't think I will hit a mental wall like that. I do remember when I was trying to go for my first pen armor on this account, being my red nose armor, I think it took me like 17 attempts to get to pen. And this was back whenever I was just going back and forth. I would go to Histria, grind like 10 hours, come out of Histria, get all the scrolls that I got, run the scrolls for like an hour to 2 hours, take the abundance of memory fragments that I gathered, and then I would just swing on it. It would go down to Pry, go up to Tet. I would cron it a few times to Tet. I was spending like billions of silver, billions of memory fragments. And at some point, I'm like, this just isn't going to go. I'm literally going to pity this thing.
Hmm.
And you got to understand, grinding at History, you're not making 2 bill an hour, 3 bill an hour. You know what I mean? You're literally making like 100 mil, if not maybe 200 mil an hour if you subtract the 50 mil 10 buff. Like, you're not making a lot of silver at those spots. So the amount of hours that I would have to grind, it did stack up. And at some point, it did get to me a little bit. But at the end of the day, like, I truly just enjoyed playing on this account so much and just creating content for it. And I feel like that was just a big motivation to continue doing it. So instead of me getting frustrated at a fail, I'm like, all right, well, let's get back to grinding. Like, I got to get this thing one way or another, you know? And I
Are
felt like
you
because
allowed
I
to use
just
the
had
tent at all? Even the free to
I
play one?
I do, yes. So the free to play tent, that's like a whole different conversation because the free to play tent, even though you are able to buy the 50 mil tent buff that gives you the drop rate,
Hmm.
you can't buy a villa directly from the tent unless you like go all the way out and get a villa in Valencia, because whenever you
That's what we
try to
had to do
buy,
back in the day before the tent. So
yeah. Because if you use the free tent and you try to buy a villa for it, it literally will give you a notification at the top of your screen saying, like, please equip a orange grade, like an orange grade tent villa or something like that. It's like you can't even directly buy it unless you literally go out to Valencia and get it yourself. But it only lasts like 3 hours,
hmm
and then you have to go all the way back to your grind spot. You could use the Magnus Wells and stuff, but by the time you get to your grind spot, your villa is only at like 2 hours and 30 minutes. So you're only really able to maximum use 2 hours of it, which is fine.
I think that's
But
part
I
of the
mean,
challenge.
yeah, that's part of it. Like having to go explore and like do all this other stuff. So I do allow myself to use the free tent because that's just part of the game and you don't have to pay for it. There's like a very simple it's like 3 quests all the way out in Trent or something like that you can
hmm
do. So it's very simple, or Bear, one of the two. But I do allow myself to use the free tent. I feel like that's not like I feel like that's not like a big uh-oh or anything to it.
So what about one other thing, like treasure items? I can see you have the archaeologist map with the title, but like let's say the newer ones that came out, like compass, or I guess you're not at the telescope. I don't think you will be for the skier score challenge, but like, are you allowed to use the archaeologist map because that wasn't technically part of the game early on?
Yeah, yeah. So like I had mentioned, even though that those items, like for example, like the Black Star, the Fallen God gear, or the treasure items, even though they weren't included in the game at the very start, like it would be if there was a classic server, even though when I started this account, it was in 2024, I did still want to tackle some of these rare items if possible. So for example, like the archaeologist map, I don't even have it on my main account. Like I never really had the aspiration to go grind for it on my main account. I just didn't care about it. But whenever I got onto this account and I noticed that I did have to spend a lot of time in the desert to grind Pila face scrolls, I was like, let me just go test out these other spots like Pilaku Jail, the other places as well. I'm like, let me just go try them because I had only stayed at Akhmed and Histria, and I wanted to see if the other spots could net me more of the scrolls written in ancient language. And at some point, I was like, should I just try to grind the archaeologist map? Like, this is something that I didn't do on my main account, and I think that this would be a fun little mini arc to do on the Ironman account.
hmm
Like you mentioned, the telescope, I will not have the gear to even grind for the telescope on this account, so that's just out of the picture. The compass, as fun as it would be,
Yeah, I don't think that would be
bone,
useful for that account, but like let's say
yeah.
any treasure items, like let's say going into the future, I know they talked about this at the recent Calpheon Ball. They're gonna have like a treasure item for a gathering that allows you to go back to your house. Will
Mhm.
that be something you can do or not?
I feel like if it's something that I can actually achieve and obtain without going over my rules or anything like that, then I think it should be fine. Like the compass archaeologist map, like those are fine. But if it requires me to go to, for example, like Oluns, where it's a party spot, because I'm not allowed to do party stuff on this account. Like it all has to be just me. Like if I wanted to grind Oluns, I got to do it myself somehow.
I've tried
So
doing
any
a solo Olin's video. It's not as good anymore, but it's
No,
doable,
not
I
anymore.
guess.
It is technically doable. So if for some reason I wanted to torture myself and go for like the fragmented LVI piece or whatever from Oluns, I could.
hmm
I don't think it's smart, and I don't think I should.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, yeah, like if it makes sense to the account and I'm able to do it, why not? I mean, that's a whole reason why I even wanted to go for the archaeologist map because it actually is useful for this account. Unlike the compass, like I mean, it's like party. It like literally lets you TP to parties and stuff like that, or have people like come to you. Um, it's just not. It doesn't make sense to have on this account if I can't do party content, you know. So the archaeologist map, I'm like, yeah, of course, why not? If it's something
hmm
that I don't have and I think it would be fun to do, it's also really useful. So yeah.
Another thing is, I was wondering if you schedule your playtime around various events, like how we have like a currently an XP rate and an item drop rate. Does that affect your play schedule or anything?
It can and it does and it doesn't at the same time. So for example, like let's say I do have the time to sit down and stream or play and grind for X amount of hours in the week, right?
Mhm.
If there happens to be a drop event, like how we mentioned earlier, there's things that the game will add
Yeah,
that
it's
I
not you
literally just
can't
cannot
avoid it, but
avoid.
I was wondering if like you play around it or something.
No, I mean the only way that you can really play around it is, for example, like let's say they had 100% drop event, like the one that we have on right now is 100% drop, right?
Right.
The way that I could go around this if I wanted to is just to not equip like a loot scroll because that's 100%, right? But
Hmm.
then that factors into the amount of trash that I'm earning per hour, which then cuts into how much silver I'm making. So there's certain things that I would like to do to avoid it, but at the end of the day, if it's something that they just add into the game and I can't avoid it, I'd rather just kind of take advantage of it whenever I
Right.
can.
Yeah, that's
So
a good idea.
if I'm grinding at Elvia Giants and I need distos, or if I need crystallized despairs and there just happens to be a drop event going on, why not just take advantage of that? It's not like I'm cutting my hours by like 8 or something like that, you know? Like there's been hours where I'll grind off of a drop event and I have like 200% drop rate and I'll still get like 8 despairs in 1 hour. But then the other day whenever I was streaming, I had 320% drop rate and I got 1 in an hour.
RNG at its finest.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like even if I have my drop rate doubled, if not tripled, it doesn't necessarily stay consistent. I know that everyone here has experienced that, especially with this game. But whenever it comes to events like that, if I'm able to take advantage of it, why not? But no, I really don't try to like schedule my play or time around that. Like if I notice that they're gonna add an event next week, it's not like I try to go, oh, okay, let me not do a lot this week and then let me take advantage of it next week. If it's there, it's there. If it's
Hmm.
not, it's not.
Yep.
So
I guess timing is all about everything. So actually behind the scenes, I was wondering how much time do you spend on your Iron Man account, like on average? Because I noticed you upload generally one video a month. I assume it's mostly because editing takes a while. But how many of those hours go into one episode on average?
it are like totaling with playtime and editing,
No, like
or
playtime for one YouTube video post edited.
so it really depends on what the video is surrounded by. So if you go back and watch maybe the first like 15-ish episodes, like maybe the first 20, at that time I was pumping out one video a week. I mean, the
Yeah,
first video
easy
is me
progression
just
gets harder.
yeah, it's like at the time when I was first starting on the account, the gear progression was just every single day. It's like the first couple episodes, I'm literally grinding at Sawsons. I'm getting a Grunnel armor, and then me enhancing it to like plus 15. I can do that in one sitting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like even if I just do it in one day, I can get all that content in a day, and then I just edit all that, and then boom, that's my video for the week. But now that I'm at the point where it's like I have to grind tens of hours for materials, enhancement materials, like I'm trying to exalt my alchemy stone, like those 300 despairs don't come easy. Like it does take tens of hours to grind. So because I'm further into the account, it does take me longer to play on the account to get the footage necessary to upload a video.
Hmm.
And I do understand that I could do like a weekly update thing, like, oh, this is what I did in my week. And then boom.
No, I
But
think the one video post edited with more highlights is cooler.
yeah, exactly. I think there's more emphasis on it. I feel like that there's more of an overarching story from start to finish. And then I'm able to set up the end of, or I'm able to set up the next video in the end of the video. So it's like, okay, cool. I just got my big upgrade. This is what I'm going to work on next, which will bleed into the next video.
Hmm.
So I prefer that kind of method, and it does suck. I wish it didn't take me a month, if not a little bit over a month, to get one video out. I wish it could be like once a week, but I'm just unfortunately not in a position to be able to play that amount
Right.
per
Yeah.
week to do that.
So, like, do you think going forward it would take you longer? So, like, currently it's 1 month an episode on average. Do you think as you progress further, it's going to be like 2 months per episode and then 3 months, I guess? Or do you set
I'm,
yourself like a deadline? No matter what happens, I have to show something. How does that work behind what you're doing?
I mean, it really depends. Again, setting deadlines, I've done that in the past where it's okay, I uploaded this video on this date. I would like to have the next one out in 2 weeks, right? I,
Right.
I once I went from 1 week videos to like 2 week videos, I tried to stay within those 2 weeks. And then at some point, I literally just couldn't. I didn't have the time in my life to sit down and play that amount to get the footage that I felt was necessary. Because
Right.
again, I could just take the 2 weeks that I've been playing and turn that into a video, but I feel like with the way that I edit my videos, I just wouldn't I wouldn't feel completed, I guess. Like in that I would feel like the video I would put out would be half-assed, if that makes
Right.
sense. And even if it does take me longer, that then resulted video I feel is something that I am like, I'm proud of this. Like it sucks it took that long, but I'm glad that I put this video out and I'm glad with how it turned out. And if it took me a month, if not 2 months, it is what it is. It sucks, but
Oh, absolutely.
I
I believe in quality over quantity any day.
yeah, of course. And I mean, as I continue to grow as a content creator and just an individual outside of this within my career field, like I have gotten better at video editing. Even if the style of video editing that I do isn't for everyone, if they don't enjoy it as much, I do feel like if you go watch episode 1 and then watch the most recent episode, it's like there is a dramatic change of production quality.
Oh,
And that also
absolutely.
does take time. Like I could just smack together all the clips and then just put it as is, but I mean, there's parts where I go back and I re-record to narrate on top of it, adding audio tracks in the background, adding on-screen effects, animations, whatever it may be, just to help, add to that production and storytelling. But
So, are you
so
able to share like how the production editing goes? Like, for example, your goal is to get X amount of items for, an upgrade. How much of that do you leave in versus cut out? And how much do you do like post like commentary over the videos versus live?
yeah,
I'm always
so
curious to
whenever
see how that's going.
yeah, whenever it comes to the production, like how it goes behind the scenes and what I leave in, what I leave out, etc. At the start of the series, I was still, I I don't want to say I was new to video editing. Like I was pretty versed on Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I use.
Hmm.
But over time, at the start, it was mostly just I would just put up like a clip. I wouldn't narrate on top of it. Like there was some narration, but not a lot. There was if you go back and watch episode 1, there is just so much dead room. Like there's just so much unnecessary content in the video that just doesn't have anything behind it, and it's just kind of dead space. Whereas now I fill that dead space or I just eliminate it entirely. So like for example, going for my exalted alchemy stone, you need 300 crystallized despairs, right?
Right.
Am I gonna show you that I dropped 300 individual crystallized despairs? No. There's just no reason to do that.
Right.
So for example, if I kill a boss that spawns out of the rift, and whenever I get dropped, I commentate on it live while it's happening, just because I feel like that's more authentic. Whereas if I were to like just clip every single despair that I dropped, put that into a video, and then commentate over that, you could still make that entertaining and you still can make that authentic. But I don't feel as though it's gonna sit with the viewer the same way as it would be if it was in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Because
was
I
just
mean,
wondering like the technical details. Like, for example, if you needed 300 as your example, would you show from 299 to 300 that one, or just like the last 5 or 10, any exciting
yeah.
moments and everything?
So kind of like how I mentioned earlier, where I do like a recap. So I've gotten into a groove and a little system where I'll do 4 hours of grinding or 6 hours of grinding, and I might show like a couple despairs in there if I commentate over on top of it, or more importantly, like if an accessory drops, like a disto, in my opinion, on this account, that's a big deal. Like that's a big drop, because back in the day, like tet distos were that was the talk of the town, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so I will, if I get a disto drop, I will highlight that, include it in the video, and then after the end of the 4 hours or 6 hours, I'll do my little recap in Calpheon where I go, we just did 4 hours of grinding. Here's what I got. We got about 11 despairs. I got like 2 in the first hour, 4 in the second hour. My third hour was a little unfortunate. I only got 1. Like I do a little recap. So I'm not just, dreading you with just clip dumping of individual drops, because it's just not necessary at that point.
Hmm.
Like the first couple of drops, sure, because it just started and that's when I'm able to highlight. But then towards the end, where it's like within the last single digit, going from like to like 98, 299, 300, I can live commentate on top of that and go, "Oh my God, we just got one more drop, like two more to go." And then the next clip can be like, "Oh, that's 299, one more," you know?
Yeah, I think I would do that too. That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
exactly. And then you could just add that emphasis on top of it to build that hype up for the last one to drop. And then the last one drops, and then you're engaged, the viewers engaged, and it's like, holy shit, he did it. Like he actually got all 300. Like that's insane that he just
Yeah.
sat there and did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
got a few
I
more
think the main thing.
questions, which is one would be how free to play friendly do you think a normal player coming into the game trying this out would be? Like, let's say a new player doesn't have all the knowledge, but they want to try this too. How hard do you think it would be for them?
I might be a little biased.
Yeah, because you have the knowledge of it, but like, let's say someone wants to
I
play all the solo, maybe with less restrictions, but just, no spending pearls, no using the central
Yeah.
market or anything.
I honestly don't think it's hard at all to be a free to play player. And
Hmm.
I know some people may disagree with that, and that's okay. But realistically, and this is like true transparency, as a new player or maybe a veteran player that's trying to get back into the game, I feel like the only purchase that I would recommend is the tent.
Yeah.
Like the tent is honestly such a good purchase if you're comfortable spending like 40 bucks, I think is what it is on discount, which I think they discount pretty often. I feel like the tent is like the only thing that you would really have to spend money on. Obviously, if you have the luxury of having like excess money that you would like to spend on your hobby, which is video games, yeah, there's no problem with buying like some of the RNG boxes, getting some extra cron stones, outfits, or whatever. But I mean, for players that are wanting to be free to play and not spend money at all, it's not hard at all. Like if you're worried about getting cron stones late in the game, even though outfit pre-orders on the marketplace do sometimes take time, depending on what it is, like the fact that you can buy a Pearl Shop outfit on the Central Market, convert that into crons to save you like a billion silver or whatever it is,
Hmm.
I feel like that's so convenient for a free to play player. Like
Yeah.
there are ways to jump through loops and jump over hurdles and stuff like that as a free to play player and still manage really good gear score. I mean, not sure if this is the greatest example, but look at Grim, a fellow BDO partner. I know he streams pretty often. He's able to play the game a lot. But I mean, he's an entirely free to play player and he's already over 800 gear score. And he did it recently before that where he had like a different free to play account and he got it to like a really high gear score. So it is possible. There is no real excuse to playing the game as a free to play player and then saying it's hard or anything like that, you know? Like, I think it's very manageable. I think it's very easy to do as well.
Also, speaking of that, now that I think of it, are you allowed to use your loyalty points since technically that was part of the game at launch and it's not spending money or anything? Do you think that would be
So,
fair?
yes. So when I created the account in the first video, I spent like the first 4 minutes going over all the rules for the account. And I did explicitly state that I am allowed to use loyalties, but only for certain things. Like
That makes sense.
for example, like as a free to play player, because if you don't have a value pack running, how else do you get loot scrolls, right? Like you could do Pit of the Undying. I think you can exchange the dark spirit greeds you get from your weekly yeah, your dark spirit greeds that you get from your weekly dark rift bosses, you can exchange those to get extra ones. You can do like your the Pit of the Undying. Like there are ways to get item loot scrolls for free without even having a value pack. And the reason why I wanted to allow myself to use the loyalty shop is because that's another feature. You can get weekly loot scrolls from the loyalty shop. I know that they've revamped the loyalty shop over time since the past 2 years since I started the account.
Yep.
So like there are additional things in there that you can buy that weren't there originally. But I mean, I was able to take advantage of like the free extra weight or like the free extra inventory slots through the loyalty shop. Just because I feel like that's not like you're not really, even though it's in the Pearl shop, it's not spending money. Like it's just rewards for me being a loyal player for the game. It's also a way that you can get like a free pet, the cuckoo bird. You can get one of those in there. So I do allow myself to use it. I did explicitly state that at the start of the series as well. I do know that certain Iron Man players may not want to use that, and that's entirely fair. But again, I think that that's like one of the charms to the Iron Man account is that I feel as though as long as you explicitly just don't use the central market or the pro shop, you can kind of really just pick and choose whatever other rules you want to add or remove from it.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how hardcore you're going with all the rules and everything you're setting for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's been a very interesting experience to see what you do. One thing is, if you like, let's say new content comes out, do you still play that on your main and then check everything out, see what it's all about, and then have that knowledge going into, you know, your Iron Man account, or do you just, let's say something new comes out, you just experience it on the Iron Man account?
Yeah, if it's something new into the game, like for example, Adonia and stuff like that, obviously I can't experience that on my Iron Man account. But if it's like a quality of life change, like the enhancement tab, like we spoke about earlier, I do check it out first on my main account just because I want to see what it's like. For example, I know that they recently removed the scorched stones that you used to use for
Oh, the
God Eyes.
Goddard, yeah.
Yeah, but now that God Eye has been removed from the game, like I randomly just had a billion silver shoved into my storage because they just took the central market value of what that was and then just converted it into silver. So there's certain things like that where I just again we can't avoid it. It just they just do it. But certain like other quality of life upgrades or if they added a new grind spot, I think the newest grind spot that they added that my Iron Man account can even touch is the bubbling Buccaneers out near the Olvi Academy.
Hmm.
Not that I can really benefit much from it, but if there is a new feature added to the game or like a new grind spot that I'm able to tackle on my Iron Man account, I do just go look at it first on my main account just to
Well, I mean,
not
they've been
necessarily
revamping
experiment,
older
but
spots, like, you know, Kama Sylvia. They've had
yeah.
Was it Upper Gyfin? I know that
Yeah.
might be still higher, but like they're revamping older spots to the point where I was wondering if, like, next patch they came out with something you could do, would you do it on your main first?
I guess it falls into the cherry picking thing again, like I mentioned. Because I know, like you mentioned, they did revamp Upper Gyfin, so like there is a Dekia Upper Gyfin. I know that they revamped Star's End, they revamped Sakraya.
Hmm.
Even though I can't grind those on my Iron Man account, let's say let's just put a hypothetical out there. Let's say they revamped Helms or
Hmm.
Elric Shrine, and they made it like a 650 gear spot or whatever. If I'm able to go grind it, I don't see why I shouldn't go take advantage of that. I think that that would be a really fun experience on the Iron Man account.
Yeah,
But if
absolutely.
if it drops like some game breaking thing or something that just would accelerate my a character's progression, then no, I'm not going to do it. Like there's just no reason to.
Yeah. So, how many hours do you have currently on your Iron Man account?
I
I
can
guess you
tell
can
you
check
on
it
the
right
dot.
now, but
Yeah. Currently on my Iron Man account, I have 1,161 hours.
that's a lot.
And I want to say, and like this is no exaggeration, I'm just gonna say like 1,000 of that is accurate. Because even though I do a lot of life skilling on this account, because I literally have to make all of my like simple chromules, any drafts or elixirs that I use, I have to make them all myself. I do spend a lot of time just kind of like AFK processing. Like
Hmm.
if I need to heat down something or if I need to do like simple alchemy and turn like wheat into dough or do something like that. Like that's I literally remember the other day that whenever or not the other day, like the other week whenever I was making simple chromules, I started grinding down dough or something. And then I went to the grocery store, came back an hour later, and it was only like 30% done. So there are a lot of things that do take a lot of hours, just AFK processing and stuff like that. But I do my best again to be as active as possible on the account if I can be. Like I don't AFK fish on this account. I don't just sit here and idly AFK like I am right now on the account.
Yeah,
If I'm
usually I'm
on,
doing something.
exactly, yeah. If I'm on the account, it's because I'm playing it. So with the 1,161 hours that I have, I solidly would say that 1,000 of that is like actively I'm sitting at my computer and playing the account.
Do you think you've learned a lot playing on this account that you wouldn't have on your main? For example, like you have to craft all your elixirs, potions, and everything, food yourself. A lot of new players or people, who don't have these restrictions just buy it off the central market. Has that taught you how to just play the game and experience more overall just by having to do it all yourself, even
A
with the
hundred
knowledge
percent.
you have?
100%. Ever since I started this account, I've also met a few other content creators that are smaller, larger than I am. Some have already stopped making content, some are still pursuing content, and I've learned a lot from them as well. Like, I had never made a simple crawl meal on my main account ever. Like, I literally, if I could buy it off the marketplace, I'm buying it off the marketplace kind of
Yeah.
player. But whenever I came to this account, knowing that I can't utilize the central market, I had to figure out how to make a simple crawl meal. And it's funny because they aren't that simple to make for anyone that has made them. It's not
I'm
simple to
glad the
do.
Olvia Academy teaches you these things
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah, which is great. But there was another content creator. He unfortunately doesn't make content anymore, but his name is Gallum8. He was doing an Ironman account. He had like 50 plus episodes. He like one tapped his pen Black Star.
Oh, that's
He actually has
crazy.
a very informative video on how to make simple crawl meals. He shows you like all the node setups for everything that you can just passively earn over time as playing, and then also showing like the best routes of like, oh, where should I go kill snakes out in Valencia to get my snake stew and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and I was able to follow that video and I was able to figure it out. So I do want to say that ever since playing on this account, my knowledge for the game has grown a lot, especially with having to make everything on my own as well. Like this self-made, self-found kind of play style of the Iron Man really has taught me a lot of this game and has grown my knowledge even further. So I'm really appreciative of it for that.
You said, are you allowed to use storages or no?
Yeah, so I'm allowed to use storages on this account. I did not go as hardcore as Sickloot did. Sickloot's Ultimate Iron Man Challenge, he did not allow himself to use any storage whatsoever.
Hmm.
Like, it had to be on his character, and that's it. So if he needed to go open like a loot box or something and it had 8 items in it, he's got to figure out how to get 8 inventory slots. Whenever I started the account, because I had never tackled an Iron Man series before or anything similar to it, I didn't want to go too hardcore because I was honestly a little nervous about it. I felt whenever I started the account that I wasn't going to really be into it for that long. So I didn't want to put too harsh of restrictions on the account just because I felt like that would ruin some of the fun for me. But now after I'm playing on this account for about 2 years, I feel as though whatever the next series and challenge is, I will make it a little bit more hardcore just because I have more knowledge and experience. And I think that it would just create more fun for me to do it that way.
Do you
Not
think
that it
this series
explicitly
would
has
still
to
be
use storage,
possible,
but
like if they didn't have some of the quality of life examples of, how Silver had weight, which you brought up before? And you said you have like 20 billion. If it still had weight, do you think you could still complete or still play this game functionally without it just being annoying?
I think you could, like, you definitely can, but it would be very, very annoying. I would be honest.
Hmm.
Like, if silver didn't have weight, or like, let's say I was playing the Iron Man account, but the silver that I had, I didn't use to buy Cron stones, right?
Hmm.
Like, I did upgrade a lot of my gear with Cron stones, like going for pen armors. Even if I didn't use the Cron stones to get the pen click, I would use Cron stones to like get it up to try, get it up to tet, and then I would raw click it to pen. So there's a lot of variables and factors that go into it that in the event that we didn't have uh like if silver still had weight and stuff like that, yes, there would be a lot of things that I would have to figure out and go, okay, well, this is a struggle, this is annoying. What can I do to get around it and still progress on the account? Which would just make it harder, which is kind of just like how it was back in the day.
Back
So,
in the day, every storage had a separate silver. There was no central
yup,
market for all that. It was kind of wild back
yup.
in the day, actually.
No, it was. It definitely was. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just, whenever they make changes to the game, you adapt to it. So if for whatever reason we did receive a classic server, or if things were like how they were back then you just have to adapt. You just learn. You figure out ways to get around it. So to answer your question, I do think it is still possible,
Hmm.
but I do think it would be very, very annoying to figure out. But I think that is just part of the fun. And if I'm just being a masochistic, if I'm being masochistic about it, then it is what it is. But I do think that the layer of difficulty and challenges and trying to figure out the loopholes and how to get around things is what makes it fun in a way.
Hmm. So one final question is, do you think that this, like, do you think you will have any roadblocks for the rest of the series where it just gets too RNG dependent, or do you think you can complete it?
I I would say yes. I do think that there would be if the Agris pity system was not in the game. Because on my main account, like like in 2022 or 2023, whenever I was going for my first ever pen accessory, which was a Voltara belt, it took me 42 clicks to get a Voltara belt to pen with
That's
like over
crazy.
10% odd. Like I was overstacking it, which I know that to some people that may be a lot or maybe whatever. Depending, everyone has different RNG.
People played the game a lot differently back in the day.
Yeah, but if I, for example, were to be going for like a pen Bassi belt, or if I wanted to go for like a pen Tungrat necklace, if we didn't have the guaranteed enhancement after 20 fails or whatever the Agris essence may be, depending on the item, I mean, like you could in theory just sit there and click it until and it may never go, you know?
Hmm.
So like those would be roadblocks because I know, for example, one of my next upgrades soon is going to be going for a pen Black Star. Pen Black Star, like we talked about earlier, it's only 15 fails to guarantee it to pen, which is, in my opinion, I feel like that's low because
I think
going
it's
for a
fair nowadays.
but in comparison to going for a pen yellow grade armor, for example, going for like pen Uragons or pen Griffin helmet, it's 35 fails. It's 35.
Hmm.
And I know that like sovereign weapons are already in the game, which is past Black Star, but we also have Adana and Fallen God gear past yellow grade. And I feel like when they included Adana gear, they should have lowered the pity uh for the yellow grade gear, similar to how they lowered the Black Star when they added Sovereign. That's just my opinion.
I think
But
that about a lot of items, even not for like a challenge, but a lot of old stuff, they should kind of tone down a little bit.
yeah. So in the event that they had just never included the Agris Essence pity system, I do think that there would be much more roadblocks that I would be facing because again, if I were to sit here and click a pen Bassi about 42 times and I just never got it, that's like so many hours of grinding in between episodes where it's just like, okay, well, I need to get content for an episode. If my next upgrade doesn't go and it takes me 50 plus clicks, that's just going to be even longer and longer between episodes.
So as of
And
now, you think you can complete it regardless of how long it takes, but you'll get there.
yeah, because one of the other roadblocks that I faced, or like a mental, oh, well, what if this happened, was when they added the Agri system. Because if I'm correct, the Agri system was not included until I think I started the account, and then shortly after is when they added the pity system.
Yeah,
I'm
correct.
pretty
It was
sure.
not there at launch. It came out a couple years later.
Yeah. So, where was it going? Oh yeah. So whenever and correct me if I'm wrong here, but because another rule on this account is that I'm restricted to one character, like I can't have boss ults, I can't have like storage mules or anything like that. Like I only have this character and that's it. And from what I'm aware of, outside of accepting the free pen black stars and stuff, you can only craft one black star per weapon slot.
Yep,
Like you can only
correct.
craft one main hand, one awakening, one offhand.
So your goal
So
ends when you get the Black Star pens, and I guess you could still technically do Fallen God armors,
yeah,
but
so I
that
mean
one's
I
just,
am
time sink.
yeah. Like the Fallen God armors, I do have 2 out of 4. I do only think I'll ever be able to achieve 3 just because the Urgons, like the boots, I just can't grind at Lukita. Um, but what I was getting into is that whenever the Agri system came out after I had created the Ironman account, I was like, okay, well, let's say I wanted to get a Pen Black Star, whenever that may be, which is I'm swiftly approaching that point in my account. I don't want to pity it. I really want to experience that dopamine rush of enhancing it because I just feel like that's far more rewarding. So it's like, oh, okay, well, what if you clicked it 14 times and then instead of you clicking for the 15th to guarantee it, what if you just trash it and then just get a second Tet Black Star and just keep clicking it until it goes without pity?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't do that actually because
Hmm.
I can only make one Black Star per account. And then that falls into a different conversation of like, oh, well, what if you just bypass it by buying one? And then it's like, well, the past
That
two
defeats the
two
purpose.
years,
Yeah.
it defeats the whole purpose. Yeah.
So are you
in
allowed to
this
do
event,
quests like reoccurring weeklies?
yeah, I mean, any reoccurring weeklies that I'm
Because
able
like
to
I
do.
think they do that for infinite potions nowadays. I think you're past that part, but like I think you can get the embers to make the fallen god and everything. So I don't know if you're going to do that, but even though it's just time gated.
Yeah, so I had already had my so I vividly remember this because I can't remember what episode it was, but whenever I was grinding at Jade Starlight Forest, I was like 30 or 40 embers in, and then they put the patch notes out where they added that 10 ember weekly quest.
Hmm.
And I did take advantage of that. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's 10 embers for me, right?" So I did that for like 2 weeks as I continued to grind for the rest of my embers. So I was able to benefit like an additional 20 off of that. But any of those reoccurring quests that you get from grinding, whether it be for Caphras, any of your little pity pieces for the infinite potions or whatever it may be, like yeah, if it's in the game, it's a quest. Like I'm able to do it. As long as in my mind it's not like accelerated gear. Like if they're not just straight up handing me something, you know what I mean? But
Does that
I
count
would
for non-gear, like quality of life? Like you know how they gave a tier 10 horse? I assume you're not doing that.
no, I have not claimed it. I am still rocking a T8 horse to this day. I am still rocking a T8 horse.
Have
But
you
I had
tried going for tier 9 though? Like that one I think is fair game if you collect
it
all the
is
materials.
it is fair game to go for the materials because I mean like a tier 9 horse, you could just go for the materials, rather it be through login rewards or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I I just don't want to. Like for
Yeah,
some
that's
reason
fair enough.
in my mind, whenever I open my gear wheel and I see a Dandelion Awakening weapon or a Kudum, or for example, just riding around on a T8 or anything that's honestly just not a T10 or a T9, like it feels nostalgic. And not that I'm
New
trying to
players will never
replicate.
understand.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm trying to like replicate a classic series because that's just not what I'm doing. I do like being able to look at my gear or my horse and see something that like no other like who else is running a dandelion weapon right now? You know what I mean? Like no
Yeah.
one. Like everyone is being shoved black stars right at the start of the account. So yeah, even though that there are things I could go for, I choose not to just because I think I enjoy the series more by using a T8 over a T9.
Hmm.
I know that might sound a little bit crazy, but that's just how I feel about it.
And then you can use the well as well.
Yeah, I did allow myself to use the well. Strictly, I did explicitly state it at the start of the
I
series
think
as
a
well.
time like saver like that, it's not really affecting anything. So I think that's probably fine, but that's just me.
Yeah, but it's also the main reason why I wanted to allow myself to use the well is because you also get the universal storage, and in my opinion, more importantly, your Magnus skill.
Hmm.
And for Musa, like our Mountain Divide, which is our Magnus skill, it's very, very important in my opinion. And I feel like even though I could play the account without using it, it just I enjoy using it, so why not?
Well, I mean,
It's
doing the
only
quest to unlock it versus just using the well to teleport are two different things.
oh yeah, that's fair. But no, I don't mind using the well at all. Like
Mm.
eh, at the start when they first introduced the Magnus Wells, I was like on my main account, I had told myself that I didn't want to use the wells because I like the exploration between riding my horse in between cities. But then at some point I'm like, okay, I just don't care anymore. Like it is just it's just time consuming. I don't mind it.
Yeah. So I definitely learned a lot from your series. Hopefully, other people will check it out. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, both on
Yeah, of
YouTube,
course.
Twitch, everything?
Yeah, of course. Before I do that, I do really appreciate you having me on. I do appreciate our conversations
Oh,
and
no
your questions.
problem.
I think they were great. For anyone that may be interested in watching my Iron Man series, I do primarily focus my content over on YouTube. It's going to be youtube.com/Ahzure underscore, or it's Ahzure BDO. I know that they changed like the domain thing. But if you just type my username Ahzure on YouTube, it's just Ahzure. You should be able to find it. I have 44 episodes, hopefully 45 within the next couple of days. I'm not sure when this video will be posted, but I do have an entire playlist on my channel where if you want to start from episode 1 and let it play all the way through, feel free to have it on your second monitor while you grind or do whatever you may be doing in the game. And if you want to watch me live on Twitch, it is also going to be twitch.tv/Ahzure underscore. I don't stream it as much as I wish I did. Again, I do like to prioritize my content over on YouTube than streaming, but I do like the personal engagement that streaming has to offer. So if you guys want to catch me live and chat or watch me just grind live on the Ironman account, that's where you can find me.
do you have any behind the scenes like plans that you have that you can share like before you share anywhere else? What's
I
in the
can I
works?
can I can tell you guys that I do think a territory locked account is possible. I can say that. I can say that.
What about the next episode? Do you have that in the works right now?
Yeah, the next episode, Ironman number 45, is like 80% done. I just have like the last couple hours of grinding that I need to accomplish and then just close the video out and that's it.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
episode 45 is almost done, but
Anyway, thanks for joining today. It's been really fun. We learned a lot today, and I'll leave all the links in the description to your channels and socials. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
um I just really appreciate you having me on. Again, I really appreciate when other content creators, especially on the YouTube side of BDO, do reach out, have conversation. I think it's only a positive thing, and I think you're doing a fantastic job, not only on your own personal channel, but just for the BDO space as a whole.
Oh, thank
You
you.
upload very consistent videos that are very informative as well. And outside of that, I think you're an incredible creator, and I really do appreciate you inviting me on here to have this conversation.
Yeah, you too. You're a great guest, and hopefully we'll see you streaming or making a video soon.
Yup.
Yep. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys later.
All right.